I played Crimson Desert again and learned a lot of new things that I want to share here. We also got a leak for the release date and collector's edition, but I want to start with brand new gameplay that just was released. So during Summer Game Fest, a new portion was shown that was like 15 hours into the game. GameSpot got some vertical footage that we see right here, and what immediately stands out is that we don't only play Cliff here. No, in fact, we play the Stag Lord, one of the bosses that I could fight in my hands-on session. By exploring the big open world, you can stumble upon the ruins of a castle where the Stag Lord is waiting for you on a throne that he still wants to protect. Some bosses in the game are linked to the main story, others to side missions, but you can also encounter some of them randomly in the open world. You can get the weapons from this boss after defeating him, but we did not know that you could also play as him. Now, they did these multiple playable characters before, even in the most recent release window trailer, so maybe those are all bosses that we first have to fight and then learn about their past by playing their own memories. Of course, your theories are more than welcome, but it at least looks interesting. Another thing you can do during the siege with the Stag Lord is repair the siege weapons that they're using, which looks kinda cool. But it's overall the huge skill that continues to surprise me. This demo also lets you play main character Cliff, who we see ride on horseback probably before the big battle. The claw physics are really looking great, and the amount of NPCs on screen is pretty impressive, and we see that in the siege battle itself as well. So the section I got to play was earlier in the game. Here I was surrounded by around 5 enemies, and they are aggressive, like they don't wait for each other's turn as we sometimes see in other games. So you really got to react fast. Attack is the best defense in this game, so be aggressive and fight back. That's the way to survive. But in the Summer Game Fest siege, you actually do have some allies by your side that take away some aggro. You can call in an artillery barrage with an arrow that then drops down on enemies in front of you. Pretty cool. But the enemy faction had some pretty strong firepower as well, like this tank that shoots projectiles from multiple angles. And I love how you destroy this machine. So Cliff has these special magical powers indicated by a leaf icon in the bottom left of the screen. By attacking and dodging, you build up this power, but you can also use consumables to charge it up. And well, one of the things you can then do is launch yourself in the air. If you use the power multiple times, you go even higher, and they can glide to land on the tank and take it out that way. But I use this power for a lot of other things as well. So one of the bosses in the game is called the Redevil. Seems like we pick up a bounty and then are tasked to take it out, but that is easier said than done. During his second phase, 5 totems namely spawn that you first have to take out before you can damage the boss again. Well, I use that jump, slow down time while aiming with my bow to destroy them from afar without having to travel the distance and becoming an easy target for the Redevil. It's also very cool to use it to dodge incoming projectiles from the boss and then fire an explosive arrow yourself. Yes, there are multiple different arrow types I could try with next to the regular arrows, these explosive shots. They deal a ton of damage and can also interrupt the boss. But be careful, when you stand too close, they will blow up in your face, dealing fire damage to you as well. And an interesting note about these boss fights, by the way, is that while using the arrows is smart to deal damage from a safe distance, at one point the boss will only have a small part of its health left, and you can only remove that by dealing damage with a melee weapon, so you have to get close. You cannot just cheese your way through these boss fights with only your arrows. From the weapon wheel you can very quickly switch between these arrows, and there were also freezing arrows that I could use to stun an enemy in place for about 4 seconds, so pretty handy when surrounded by multiple targets, but they did not seem to work on the bosses I got to fight. You see me use another slow time ability, by the way, here that you can use to keep the enemies away from you and more easily fire arrows. It was pretty strong. Want to go over more of the things that I found in a moment. I also namely tested other weapons instead of just a sword and shield. But let's go over the release date leak first. And real quick, leave a like on the video, that would really help me out, and subscribe to be up to date on everything Crimson Desert. So I find it kind of surprising that we did not see the game at any of the Summer Game Fest shows, even though they did have a demo playable at the event. Like, I expected a release date announcement, and well, seems like a Romanian game shop did as well, as they posted their listing listing for Crimson Desert early before removing it, and there we see a December 2nd date, which would be a Tuesday. What makes this listing more legit is the inclusion of special editions like a collector's edition that includes a 12-inch statue of a dragon that we can likely fly in the game as well. Just like tarot cards based on the different bosses, a map, and way more, and seems like this is that map, as there's also a physical deluxe edition where we see it included. So the question now is December 2nd still the date? As I totally believe it was, at least at some point, with maybe the pre-order supposed to go live as well, and the Romania website did not get the memo, so put them up. So I think this might mean that it's getting delayed to early 2026. I think Gamescom is like the final moment that we will hear about either a 2025 or 2026 date. I still hope it launches this year. Feels like the perfect winter break game. During the Summer Game Fest demo, there was also a brand new boss fight against the Cassius Mortar, likely at the end of the siege battle. So again, this was 15 hours or so into the game, where Cliff also has special fire powers now, looking at this icon, and he can use those to launch some powerful effects that also have a sort of explosion afterwards. But the highlight of this new footage is totally the moment where Cliff uses his green magic abilities to lift the pillar in the environment and use it as a one-time use weapon, dealing quite some damage. And I noticed that during my play session too, that the game really seems to reward your creativity, which should make for some really fun combat. But you can also pick up actual weapons from the ground. The ruins before you encounter the Stag Lord have some weapons lying around that you can grab, and then they will actually appear in your inventory. So you actually keep them, and through a special spot in the item wheel you can quickly switch to and switch between these weapons. And so far they were all heavier two-handers, so you will then also use the weapon to block instead of your shield. But the cool part is that they all have their own unique combos, and I already figured out that if you actually start with a faster light attack and then follow up with the heavy attack strikes, you can extend that combo, so get more hits in before sending the enemy flying with the final attack from the axe. Now sometimes the game would still default back to your sword and shield during certain moments, but it is cool to know that there will be different fighting styles for Cliff as well. That item wheel also had a lantern that you can turn on or off, or have it on automatic, so it goes on when needed. And by switching tabs you can actually go to armor and quickly switch between the 4 different pieces that all change the look of Cliff. So maybe in a fight when an enemy has a certain type of attack you can switch to better suited armor. Not entirely sure, would of course be more ideal if you could make builds and then quickly switch between a full set of armor and weapons. But it does overall still feel that even after multiple events and play sessions, we've barely scratched the surface of what Crimson Desert has to offer. I really want to sit down and spend multiple hours in the open world to also get a sense of exploration and the overall progression. But I am impressed that even with quite some gameplay out there, we constantly learn about new moves and ways to use the different powers. Like the combat seems to have quite some depth. Make sure of course that you subscribe to learn way more about the game and not miss anything. A like would really help me out, and check out our previous hands-on with Crimson Desert video with other types of info that you probably don't know about by clicking on the screen. I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.